There's a specific moment inside a bank when your account stops being a problem they're trying to solve and starts being a loss they're managing. Most people never know that moment happened. They find out later, usually when it's too late to change it. I spent over 20 years in banking as a branch manager and a district manager, and I've watched that shift happen more times than I'd like to count. Today, I'm going to tell you exactly what that shift looks like, what triggers it, and what you can still do about it if you're somewhere in this window right now. If you caught the last video, credit card 30 to 90 days past due, what's actually happening to your account? You know what the first 90 days cost you, the credit score damage, the penalty rates, the late fees stacking up. Today, we pick up right where that left off, days 91 through 180. This is where it gets more serious, but it's also where the decisions you make still matter. Here's something most people outside of banking don't know. When your account hits 90 days past due, something changes internally at the lender, not just in terms of how often they're calling you, but in how they're categorizing you. Up until this point, even with the missed payments, the late fees, the credit hits, you were still generally in a part of the process where the bank's goal was recovery, get you back on track, collect what you owe, work something out if possible. At 90 days, your account gets flagged as seriously delinquent. Contact attempts go up, more calls, more letters, more urgency in the language. And internally, the account starts being evaluated differently. The question shifts from how do we help this person catch up to how long do we keep trying before we cut this loss? The critical thing to understand here is this: if you're still dealing with the original creditor, the bank or credit card company, you still have more flexibility than you will once that changes. Original creditors, in my experience, are generally easier to work with than what comes next, but that window is narrowing with every week that passes. I want to tell you about something I witnessed more than once. During my time working directly at the branch level, a customer came in. I could tell from the moment they walked through the door that getting here had taken something out of them. They were embarrassed. You could see it in the way they carried themselves. And underneath that, there was real panic, the kind that comes from knowing you've let something go on too long. But there was something else underneath both of those things. If I'm being honest, they already knew. They came in hoping I could do something, but somewhere in the back of their mind, they already knew. The account had crossed 90 days, and at the bank I worked for, and I want to be clear, this was specific to how that institution handled things. Other lenders may operate differently. Once an account hit that point, it moved out of the branch entirely. It transferred to an internal collections team, and that team operated very differently than a branch manager having a conversation across a desk. There was nothing I could do, not because I didn't want to help, I did, but the process doesn't allow for it at that stage. The account wasn't mine to work with anymore. What stayed with me wasn't the policy. It was that moment across the desk when they realized that all the time they'd spent avoiding the situation hadn't made the problem smaller. It had made their options smaller. Fear made the decision for them. Every week they waited, one more door closed. Before we get to the charge-off itself, there's something I need to tell you that most people in this situation don't realize. While your account sits unpaid in this window, the balance isn't frozen. It's still growing. Interest is compounding daily. Most credit cards at this stage have already triggered a penalty APR, and penalty rates at major issuers commonly run close to 30% or higher. Late fees are still being assessed, which means a balance of $3,000 at day 90 could look significantly different by day 180. The number you're eventually going to have to deal with is almost certainly larger than what you started with. And the longer this goes, the wider that gap gets. That's not meant to cause panic. It's meant to motivate action. Because understanding that the meter is still running is exactly the kind of information that should push you to pick up the phone today instead of next week. Somewhere between 120 and 180 days past due, and the exact timing varies by lender, your account gets charged off. Now, I want to be precise about what that actually means, because this is one of the most misunderstood terms in personal finance. A charge-off is an accounting decision. The lender reclassifies the debt as a loss on their books. The account gets closed. It gets reported to the credit bureaus with a charge-off notation. Here is what a charge-off does not mean. It does not mean the debt is gone. It does not mean you're off the hook. It does not mean you can stop worrying about it. The bank changed which column the balance lives in on their financial statements. Your legal obligation to repay it did not change at all. And the credit impact at this point is significant. By the time you hit charge-off, the missed payments from the previous months have already done serious damage. A charge-off on top of that can drop your score an additional 100 to 150 points. And that notation stays on your credit report for 7 years from the date of your very first missed payment. Not the date it charged off, the date of that first missed payment. There's also something most people don't know. When a charged-off debt gets sold or assigned to a collection agency, 2 entries can appear on your credit report. The original charge-off from the creditor and a brand new collection account. 2 separate negative marks for the same debt. That's not a glitch. That's how it works. And it's one more reason why getting ahead of this while you still can is so important. Once the account charges off, one of 2 things usually happens. The original creditor may keep the debt and continue trying to collect it themselves through an internal collections team, sometimes for weeks, sometimes a few months, or the debt gets sold outright to a third-party collection agency or assigned to one to work it on the creditor's behalf. That often happens within 30 to 90 days after the charge-off. Here's why that distinction matters. The moment a third-party collector enters the picture, federal law applies, specifically the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act, the FDCPA. That law gives you rights. When a collector first contacts you, they are required to send you written validation information within 5 days. You then have 30 days to dispute the debt in writing. That is not a suggestion. That is a legal deadline. If you dispute it within that window, collection activity must pause until they verify the debt. The FDCPA deserves its own dedicated video, but the headline is this: you have rights, know them before you pick up the phone. Let's talk about what you can actually do and what happens if you don't. If you're still in this window before a charge-off, contact the original creditor directly. Ask about hardship programs or payment arrangements. This conversation gets harder the further you get into the window. If you don't make that call, the decision gets made for you. And the next person you're talking to is a collections team with less flexibility and very different incentives. If the account has already charged off, your options shift, but they don't disappear. If the debt is still with the original creditor, contact them. If it's been sold, you negotiate with whoever holds it now. Many collectors will accept less than the full balance for a lump sum because they purchased the debt for a fraction of its face value, but you won't know what's possible unless you make the call. When a third-party collector contacts you, request written proof of the debt before paying anything. Errors in collections happen more than most people realize. Make sure the amount and the account are actually yours. And do not make any payment or acknowledge the debt without a written agreement that spells out exactly what you're paying and what it settles. In some states, doing so can restart the statute of limitations. Get everything in writing, every time, no exceptions. I want to be straight with you about where things stand. The credit damage from this window is real. A charge-off combined with months of late payments is a serious negative event. It stays on your report for 7 years. There's no shortcut around that timeline, but the impact fades, particularly after the 2-year mark, as you build positive history on top of it. A paid or settled charge-off is viewed differently by some future lenders than one that's been ignored entirely. Getting it handled stops the active damage and gives you something to build from. The people I saw recover fastest were the ones who stopped avoiding and started deciding. That starts with understanding where you are. Now you do. If you missed the video that covers everything leading up to this point, go check out Credit Card 30 to 90 Days Past Due, What's Actually Happening to Your Account. I've got it linked on screen right now. If this video helped you understand what's actually happening, or what could happen if you wait, consider subscribing so you don't miss the next one. We're covering lawsuits, wage garnishment, and what the statute of limitations actually means for your situation. I'll see you there.